Analogical arguments, a legal story. Legal reasoning is an important part of law. There are two types of legal reasoning: analogical or inductive, and deductive. Analogical reasoning refers to an inductive argument that uses the properties of a group to establish the property of another thing that resembles the members of that group. Deductive reasoning refers to the process of reasoning from one or more general statements or premises to reach a logically certain conclusion. There are three key things to consider. First, these two types of reasoning help you form an understanding of what's going on in a legal case. Second, simply making a well-formed argument does not mean you will persuade a judge to decide in your favor. Third, the success of an argument depends on the content of your argument. The ideas of stare decisis and common law are very important to the process of analogical arguments. So what is stare decisis or common law? Most legal problems are governed by common law or law made by legislative or administrative authorities. Stare decisis is a key legal principle that propounds that judges must respect the precedent established by our prior decisions. It means that a rule established in a previous legal case can be used to determine subsequent cases that have similar issues or facts. This allows us to have predictable outcomes in the court system. It also allows us to use precedent to create an analogical argument. So what is an analogical argument and what does it look like? In the cartoon strip you see, it looks like Sparky and Bubbles are having an argument about the creature that they can see that looks like a bat but also has human legs. So it is neither a human nor a bat. Instead, it is Batman. Let us look further as to what an analogical argument really entails. There are several key properties of analogical arguments. One is that it is an inductive argument using the properties of a group to establish the property of another thing that resembles the members of that group. It attempts to show that the facts of the problem case are substantially similar to those in a previously decided case. It follows a similar form. Please refer to the example of X, Y, and Z in the next slides. It makes an analogical argument using three steps. Step 1 is deciding a base point. Step 2 is stating aligned facts. Step 3 is prioritizing. So let us see this through the lens of an example. Let us say that X has properties P, Q, and R. Similarly, Y also has properties P, Q, and R. If X is then found to also have property Z, we could argue that Y will also have property Z since Y is similar to X in at least three other aspects. In doing so, we would exemplify the application of analogical argument. Analogical arguments form a specific form. The form looks something like this. X is similar to Y in certain known aspects. X also has some other feature Z. Therefore, Y also has feature Z or features similar to Z. Let us now discuss in a little bit more detail the three steps of making an effective analogical argument. The first step of making analogical arguments involves deciding a base point. How do we do that? A base point is made by identifying the relevant facts that will impact whatever decision is made. Let us look at some examples. Let us say we will use the XY scenario for the facts where X is a rat, Y is a human, and Z feature is a lethal nerve agent. How do we use that to make analogical argument step 2 that involves stating aligned facts? The facts that align should be stated in terms of their dissimilarities and similarities in order to make the comparison between two separate situations. For example, similarities between rats and humans could include both are mammals and both have nervous systems and brains. A dissimilarity could be that the genetic makeup of rats and humans are different. So how do we use these facts to apply to step 3 of making analogical arguments that involves assigning importance to the facts? We need to weigh the similarities and dissimilarities on their importance. This is crucial to making a good analogical argument. In order to do that, you must know what's important to you and the others in order to correctly argue your point. For example, using the feature Z for X, you now know that when exposed to nerve agent 274, 90% of the rats died. That means feature Z is that 90% of the rats died when exposed to the nerve agent 274. To argue the fatality of the nerve agent for humans, you must now determine if the dissimilarity in genetic makeup is a more important fact than the similarities in physical attributes such as nervous systems and brains. So how does that look when applied? Depending on the stance, you could conclude that because rats and humans have brains and nervous systems, if exposed to nerve agent 274, 90% of all humans will die. Or, because rats and humans have different genetic makeup, humans may not be affected by the nerve agent at all. It all depends on what facts you prioritize and how knowledgeable you are about the facts. Let us look at some examples of application of analogical reasoning through legal cases. Using the example of duty of reasonable care. In the case Donahue versus Stevenson in 1932, the duty of reasonable care was established when the manufacturer of a bottle of ginger beer was liable for damages to a consumer who became ill as a result of a dead snail in the bottle. The court argued on two key points. The manufacturer had a duty to take reasonable care in creating a product that could foreseeably result in harm to the consumer in the absence of such care. The consumer had no possibility of intermediate examination. However, the same principle of duty of reasonable care could be applied using similarities or dissimilarities of the case. Application of similarities could be seen in the Hazeldine versus C.A. Daw and Son Limited 1941 case, where the principle of reasonable care was extended by analogy, allowing damages for harm against an engineering firm whose negligent repair work caused the collapse of a lift. The worker in this case did not have access to information that would allow him to know that such a collapse would take place. In contrast, using application of dissimilarities was seen in Farr versus Butters Brothers and Company 1932, where by contrast the principle was not applicable to a case where a workman was injured by a defective crane because the workman had opportunity to examine the crane and knew of the defects. To recap, let us take a look at the key takeaways from this tutorial. Analogical arguments are an important part of legal reasoning. Central to this is the principle of stare decisis, or using precedents to make legal decisions. Both similarities and dissimilarities of cases matter in the decision making. An effective argument relies on powerful content, relevant facts, and judicious application of the legal principles. Thank you for watching this tutorial, and happy learning.